Since the day you were born, you have been in a trance. I promise you. The stories you tell yourself are a trance. And we're all subject to it, right? So I want you to now picture yourself throughout the day. And maybe you've been going through this lately, just with the negativity and the chaos in the world, that you're just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so you start putting a pause in your sentences of the self-critical talk, and you put a new story in motion. You start to gather the habit to pause between the sentence and your mind. And so what I want to impress on you, especially coming from clinical hypnotherapists and background in this, is that the stories that we tell ourselves are the loudest. And even with clear insight, you may feel stuck or patterns leading to all this criticism or stagnation in your life. But the real reason, there's a couple of them, but when we address things from the top down, not the bottom up, meaning the root, maybe it's a trauma, but the trauma can be small or big. And from that perspective, you haven't addressed the energy. And so you have to find the light in the shadow. And so every frequency has a significant shadow, and which really, really is really important as a human being, because we allow our inner world to become toxic. And the frequency then turns into a shadow. The commander turns into the dictator. The challenger turns into a manipulator. The motivator turns into a performer. The healer, right, becomes a cipher, or I call it the wounded healer. The professor turns into the diminisher to make sure they stay in control of everybody. The seer, the mystic, becomes the perfectionist. So what story are you operating from? One of life or one in the shadow? So there may not be an answer, but without a regulated nervous system, there is no start to self-correcting our frequency and story. There's a delta that converges between reclaiming your power, and this is something that we do with the light between experience and the oracle, that you've lived all of this life telling yourself all of these stories, which are draining your energy. And this really matters. So I want to repeat, void of regulation in the nervous system, even with the best insights, your knowledge is unused. So what's unfortunate is this shadow frequency is often recognized as a healthy one in society. Now, again, with the light between oracle experience, we come from a bottom-up approach. And so what I want to impress on you is, no matter where you're at in your life, the story that you would have thought that you would have had at this time in your life, you're exactly where you need to be. If you look at different TV shows or you look at society, we always focus on the shadow, and the shadow always takes precedent over the light because it's traumatic. It creates friction. It creates somebody to come in and get hooked. So even though our cultures value the shadow, we are moving into a new time and creating new agreements to no longer be the manipulator or the dictator, but to truly self-leadership and move into a new frequency of light versus that shadow. And so that is why people with great wealth still die in a very, very empty soul. Your shadow can affect the world around you, but it has a cost. And it really requires us to burn down the house to rebuild one that is life-giving and one that has many, many tiers. It's called like the penthouse, where you can step into the highest perspective in your life and no longer be at the bottom in the shadow where you're just looking and smelling the garbage on the ground. You're at the fresh air in the balcony at the top. So I really want to impress on you that culture precedent is on the shadow. This is the habit of our culture, where we're making new agreements from the shadow to the light. And so until you clear it from your soul, you will hold on to that bitterness, the jealousy, the greed, the anger, the violence, whatever that is.